Good morning, class. This is your English teacher, Sir Sanjay. I welcome you all to yet another session of YouTube, wherein we discuss lessons from English honeydew text, English supplementary, and English grammar from time to time. So, if you remember in the previous YouTube session for English honeydew text, we already have started the second unit, isn't it? Called the Tsunami, wherein we read true accounts of a number of heroic people who, in the face of adversity, rose up, they fought, and through their skill, not only skill, through their knowledge and corrective and quick thinking, they emerge out of the trouble. Not only did they help themselves and their family, they help others as well, isn't it? We read interesting accounts of number of people. We read how devastating tsunami was, isn't it? And in the pursuit and in learning, we came across a number of new words. I'm sure you all have digested those words well. Whenever, if anything is asked in future regarding these words, you should all be able to answer. Okay. So moving on. After completion of each part of the story, we were introduced to new hero, isn't it? A new hero who would come out all of a sudden and then save lives of people, save themselves, and then there were stories that gave us accounts where lives were shattered, isn't it? Families were destroyed in terms of seconds. We also held a quick discussion of question and answer at the end of each section, isn't it? So third part of the story was the final part, and then it followed with number of comprehension check, which was also briefly discussed, and then came working with text containing a number of lessons. Okay, class, so I thought we should quickly discuss what was done in the previous class. And now, since what was done in previous class has already been discussed, it is time for us to reveal today's topic. What is today's topic? It's a poem by the name Geography Lesson. Okay, what is the name of the poem? It's called Geography Lesson. Alright. Geography, you all know, is one of the branches of social science, wherein you study about people, earth, galaxy, these, that, so many things, isn't it? So now, this is the poem that we are going to study class today. The poem is named Geography Lesson, like I said, right? Now, who wrote this poem? Let's find out. It's written by Zulfikar Ghosh. Okay, Zulfikar Ghosh. So I'll quickly read the poem once for you, and then I'll explain them slowly and slowly. Okay. So let's do it. There is a brief introductory preface. Let's read the preface and try to understand what is it all about. It says, can you imagine what your city would look like if you saw it from 10,000 feet above the ground? Neatly planned and perfect in proportion, like a geometric design, it would strike you as something very different from what it actually is while you are in thick of it. In thick of it means while you are staying in the place. Okay, so the writer may have taken an aerial view of the city or the place or state where he resides in, and then he finds things were pretty much in shape. They looked much better when he had a bird's eye view from top. Okay, he had a bird's eye view from top, and things felt really pretty. It seemed as though they were well planned. Okay, so here is a poet's description of just such a view of the city and some questions that came or come to his mind. Alright, so let's write. When the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had, seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile. There seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard, unplanned, and without style. We are here, unplanned and without style, when the jet sprang into the sky. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it's quite high, isn't it? 10,000 feet. It was clear why the country had cities where the river ran and why the valleys were populated. The logic of geography. The geography teacher must have already taught you, that land and water attracted man. These are the two things that attracted man. Wherever there is land and proper water supply, humans would find a way to be there. Okay, so this word the writer is trying to highlight was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round and that it had more sea than land. Okay, class. Moving on to the final stanza, but it was difficult to understand that the man on the earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across the cities, and to kill from their height. It was not clear why. Zulfikar Bose. So he winds up the poem on a brilliant note. Okay, I'll just explain them to you. So there is a word called inevitability, right? It comes from the word inevitable. So what does inevitable means? It means something that cannot be avoided. Haphazard refers to something without plan or order. Delineated means to show. Okay. So let's break up the poem stanza wise. Says when the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had. Okay. So he must have sat into a jet or something to feel how the place he resides in look like from the sky, to have a bird's eye view. Okay, so he states that it was clear why the city had developed so well. Okay, you see, seeing it scale 6 inches to the mile, there seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard. Okay, so as the writer was enjoying an aerial view, he could not help but admire the precision with which the city had been planned. Otherwise, what looked like a haphazard to him now it all looked as though it was planned perfectly. While he used to stay in the same place, alright, it seemed to him as though there was no plan and all, there was no style, nothing. But then his perception had entirely changed when he was up in the air. Okay. Moving on to second stanza. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, so when the jet reached higher and higher, it says it was clear why the country had cities where the river ran. Alright, river. River is an important source of water. Right? Water is the essence of life. Without water, life cannot be functional. We cannot imagine life without water. Ranging from drinking to washing to almost everything, water is necessary. Okay. So the the poet here highlights an important point. Says it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran. Of course, wherever there was river, people started planning their house and everything nearby, so that they won't ever face problem related to water, water. Right? So this also was a reason why valleys were populated. Valleys are plain, hills are high. So valleys were populated. Isn't it? Valleys were populated and cities were constructed or built where rivers ran. Isn't it? So this basically is the logic of geography, which also states that, wherever there is plain land and water, human beings would automatically be attracted towards building house or whatsoever you'd like to call there. Okay. So he says it was clearly delineated. Okay. The geography theory that we talk about was clearly delineated, clearly explained. Isn't it? Because cities were being planned where there is water source, more and more houses and sheds and everything was visible where there was valley, not on hill. Okay. So this had already been propagated in geography lesson. Okay. So he experienced it firsthand when he was seeing the city from the top. Okay. So let's find out what happens in the following paragraphs. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round. So as it went higher and higher, he says it was clear. The fact that earth was round was now clear. Okay. And that it had more sea than land. Earth was more of an ocean than land, is what the poet says. Okay. But it was difficult to understand. But then poet has a dilemma, a confusion. He says it was difficult to understand that the man on the earth found causes to hate each other. See, we find causes to hate each other, isn't it? There is community crisis, there is race crisis, there is fight over this, that. Very strange. It shouldn't happen. We also found ways to build wall across cities. There are boundaries. Earth was designed and made by God so that humans could live in peaceful coexistence. But there is nothing called peaceful coexistence now. There is so much hatred. We as young students and a teacher community should try to remove this social level. You students have got to play a great role here. March forward. Try to eradicate the social level. Try to be an ambassador of peace. Okay. So the writer says, he was baffled. He was confused. Because he was not able to understand why humans would behave the way they were behaving. Why there was so much hatred. Okay. So this poem is written by Zulfikar Ghosh. It's written by whom? Zulfikar Ghosh. Okay. So there are some new words that we learn in glossary. We have already discussed this. Inevitable. What does inevitable mean? Inevitable means something that cannot be avoided. Haphazard refers to something been done without plan or order. Delineated means to show something to someone. Okay. Wonderful poem, class. The takeaway had already been shared. Now let's work with the poem. Question answer session. It says find 3 or 4 phrases in stanzas 1 and 2 which are likely to occur in a geography lesson. Geography lesson. Which stanzas would occur? Which line? Separate them. It has plenty. So seen from the window of an aeroplane, the city appears as haphazard as on the ground, as neat as a map, as developed as necessary. What would it be? Find it out. There's not one. From 2 and 3. 3. With the following statements are example of the logic of geography. There are cities where there are rivers. Cities appears as they are not from 6 miles above the ground. It is easy to understand why valleys are populated. It is difficult to understand why humans hate and kill each other. The earth is round and it has more sea than land. Find it out, class. It's easy based on the explanation that has just been made. Alright. Then moving on, what does it say? Question number 4. It says mention 2 things that are clear from the height. Not clear from the height. So this was a simple poem, class. With this we come to conclusion of the explanation of the poem called Geography lesson. Now you all have understand. It's not difficult or something. It's a simple poem. But then the poem ended on a wonderful note where he asks why there is so much fight and hatred when it when none of this should have been there in the first place. Okay. Yeah. So with this, we come to conclusion of this session. We'll have more videos uploaded. No worries. Thank you everyone. Thank you.